which one of you would like to go next? Okay, Kat is up.
Can you hear me? The cord, I like to move around a lot, so that cord is just going to probably trip me up. Thank you, Kathy and Mindy, and thank you to all of you. I'm sure they told you you had to come into here at 1 o'clock and be a part of this, but you don't really have to do anything. Do you? You have to? Could have stayed home today. Could have pretended to be sick and whatever. It's funny though, because with something like heroin, that's taken away from you. You can't choose anymore. You don't get choice. The word addict itself comes from honestly I can't remember. I'm sure one of the new instructors could probably help me out. Like from either Greek or Latin, it means slave. To be an addict means to be a slave. And when you are addicted, you can't think for yourself, you can't decide for yourself. You are stuck on a one-way track, and that's it. Man, I was a handsome little guy. Okay, so let me back up. Let me tell you who I am. My name is Patrick Kempford. I'm from Madison, Wisconsin. And I'm a person in long-term recovery. What that means is that I haven't used a drug or drank since June 6, 2009. And I haven't... Thank you. I'm pretty happy about that too. And I haven't smoked cigarettes since April 11, 2013. Which is also a phenomenal thing. My story with addiction really, if I was going to get really, really literal, I would talk about being 8 years old and stealing money from my mom to buy candy. And I don't mean like $1, I mean like going into her wallet and stealing 20 bucks and then pretending to find it on the way to the store. That's a true story. When I was 4, I used to go into the kitchen and sneak butter. Not cookies, but butter. I don't know, I'm a weird guy. But that kind of dishonesty, kind of ran in me at an early age. But it really, really kind of started to take a hold when I was 12, and I started smoking cigarettes. After learning how to smoke cigarettes, I quickly ended up, drinking. And then before I knew it, I was, smoking weed and drinking every weekend or every day, whatever was available. I didn't have a whole lot of supervision and direction throughout most of my upbringing. My parents divorced when I was 2, and that had a lot to do with my mom's drinking. 2 years after that, my dad died. Kind of a weird sort of like freak occurrence. He worked for a refinery in Madison, and it was later discovered that through his autopsy he died of exposure to benzene. Benzene's a solvent. It got into his body and it caused a lot of just crazy reaction, and he died. My mom didn't deal with that either very well. She drank more, and I had an older brother, about 8 years older, who was already in the mix of things. His dad, we had different fathers. His dad tragically also died in a drunk driving accident when he was like 8 months old. So there's already a lot of kind of pain and harm caused by addiction at this point, in terms of accidents and the way people deal with stress. And that's kind of what I learned from right away. Spending my teen years feeling mostly sorry for myself because, I wasn't like everybody else. I didn't have the mom and the dad and somebody that I could look up to. And, I didn't have all that. I was rolling solo. It was really just me. And I have felt independent of myself throughout most of my life. When I was about 14, I was taken out of my mom's home and put into a foster home because I wasn't going to school. You know, that was not my priority. I didn't have a good time there. You know, I just never felt comfortable around, well, you people. Never felt comfortable around any you people, you know. And so I didn't go. It just seemed like a logical thing. I didn't like it, so I didn't do it. So I got put into foster care, and, well, back up a little bit. Before that happened, I'd gotten in some significant trouble. So it wasn't just the truancy that they noticed, but, you know, I got in this habit of starting fires. Starting fires was like a way that I felt like I could sort of control something. But fires, like addiction, quickly get out of hand, and a lot of property got damaged, so I got in trouble for that, plus the truancy. So they took me out, deciding that my mom couldn't control me the way that a parent is supposed to control their child. And I was put in a foster home. And that picture there on the left was me in 8th grade in the foster home there in Oregon, Wisconsin. And I did really well there. I went to school every day, except for that week after winter break because I had mono. But I went every day, and I was on the honor roll. Did great. Actually, I had a pretty good time. But that's because I wasn't given the freedom to go outside of that. Like, I went to school, and then I would go home. On the weekends, I'd get to go back to Madison and be at my mom's, and when I was back home in Madison, believe me, I was out partying, I was smoking, I was drinking, I was doing whatever I could. I was staying out all night. I'm 15 years old here, and I'm partying like a rock star. It's crazy. Well, it wasn't long before I started experimenting with other drugs. I was about 16 the first time I tried cocaine. Throughout this time, I think I had already experimented with hallucinogens and things like that. So, you know, I wasn't adding to my intellect at that point. I was kind of destroying, you know, my brain. Within just a few years, I realized that a lot of my friends weren't just, you know, people like me that partied a lot. They were actually heroin addicts. Like, I remember being 18. Oh, just to quickly sum up, I was only in that foster home until the last day of 8th grade, and then that day my stuff was already packed for me because I wore him out, my foster dad. He couldn't handle me anymore. I was too defiant, too rebellious, and I worked just enough within the lines of that structure that he couldn't really like call me out, but he knew that he couldn't do anything for me either. It's kind of like a I'll play your game but by my rules sort of attitude. It's a way to manipulate a situation. Anyway, so I ended up back at my mom's. Within a few years, you know, I mean, I started high school, I went right back into what I'd been doing every weekend, but now I was doing it every day. I personified the pothead. You know, I took on that entire role and I wore it with pride. Just like I would later take on the role and image of a heroin addict and wear that with pride. So like I said, before I knew it, all my friends were junkies. Like, I remember this one time, I let this 35-year-old man who just looked beaten crash in my house for the weekend so he could, like, you know, withdraw from heroin. I didn't really know what that meant at the time. I was just like, yeah, man, sure, I'll give you a place to crash. And within a couple of years, you know, I had earned my first felony for trying to steal some beer out of a restaurant just off of State Street. Unfortunately, that restaurant is attached to some residential property. So according to the law, I broke into a home and I took property. That's burglary. So I received a felony for that. While I was on probation for that, I started doing heroin. I never had a dirty away because I knew how to manipulate that system. So I was able to continue doing that until I didn't, you know, until I was no longer on probation. And then my grandma died, my dad's mom, and left me a large inheritance. So here's a kid, 21 years old, never really, you know, had money to speak of, heroin habit, and just a boatload of money. I used just about every penny of that money to to put into my arm. I mean, sure, I spent it on some other things too, but that was mostly like, you know, Blinding Kugels and Budweiser and Jack Daniels. So it wasn't really like all that much variation. I started traveling around the country to escape myself. Like I said, I never felt really comfortable around you people, but that's really not true. The problem wasn't how I related to other people, the problem is how I related with myself. I wasn't fond of me. I never really found any remarkable characteristics of myself, so I figured, well, you know, I'll go be somebody else. And fitting into that traveling kid, junkie role was pretty easy for me. Anybody ever see like okay, in that middle picture there, you ever see somebody that kind of looks like that with like a big green pack and a cardboard sign that says traveling, broke, and hungry? Anybody ever see that? Anybody? I was that guy. That was me. Although I would try to be clever with my signs, I wouldn't just say traveling, broke, and hungry. I'd be like, you know, out of gas, hate to ask, but we need cash or something. Or with me and my dog, instead of saying broken traveling, it said broken travelers, which I thought was pretty cool, to include my dog in that. But that didn't take away from the fact that what I was doing was killing me. So after several years of traveling all over the country, doing heroin in every corner of the country, you know, I mean, I stole a car with some people and went to New York City because my connection in Madison got busted. And I needed to get high, I needed dope, I needed to stay consistently on that drug, because when you don't have it, you feel like you're dying. You feel like you're dying. It's like the worst thing that a person can feel. It's like the worst sort of flu you could have, only instead of like taking some over-the-counter medication that makes you feel like, a little better, when you're dope sick and you do more heroin, you feel instantly okay. My mom one time asked me, after having stolen her ATM cards and ripped her off about $400, she asked me, how could you do that? How could you do that to me? It's like, well, if you felt as bad as I did, and the thing that was going to make you feel better was on the other side of that door, and then somebody left the key sitting there on the floor, you pick it up and use it, right? That's how I saw it. That was my rationalization. It made it okay for me to do that. So, I go to New York with a friend and my girlfriend at the time, who I really actually cared a lot about. But I turned her on to heroin. And eventually she didn't want to be in that situation anymore, and she was given a way out, and she took it. And I didn't really hold a grudge, because I understood. I wished I had a way out too, but I didn't. So a couple of years later, I ended up on the other coast in Portland, and out there I was doing a different kind of dope. I was doing the black tar stuff, because that's what they got out there, along with cocaine, every day for about 9 months. And at one point, my mom, I called her just because I would periodically check in, let her know that I was still alive. I figured she'd appreciate that. And she told me she was coming to get me. And I was just like, she's like, where are you? I was like, in Portland? She's like, no, where are you specifically? I was like, I'm at the drop-in center at such and such and whatever streets. She's like, I'm coming to get you. And it was weird, because she said it in a way that like I was across town. Like I'm at the mall or something. Like, oh, I'm at the mall, can you give me a ride? You know? Like, no, I'm like 1,200 miles away or something. You know? And she came and she picked me up, and when she and my brother were like standing there, I saw them on the corner we were supposed to meet. As I'm approaching with my dog Buddy, she didn't even notice me. She didn't recognize me. My brother picked me up. My mom didn't. She was looking right by me. She's like, where? Where is it? He's like, he's right, that guy right there, walking towards us. She's like, no, that's not him. I was brought back to Madison by then with a large amount of drugs in my pocket. I knew they were coming, so I ripped off one of the dealers out there. I put a knife to his throat, and I told him to spit out all the drugs he had collected in his mouth in the little balloons. Told him to spit them out, and I took that, and I took his money, and I decided that I'm going to take that, and I'm going to start fresh back in Madison. That was my plan. Thankfully, on the way back, I stopped at an A&W, and all of the thing that was all balled up, it fell out of my pocket, and I wasn't able to bring that stuff back to Madison. I'm really grateful for that, because I know that had I brought that back and started dispersing it to my friends, there would be more blood on my hands. And the reason I say more is because the life of an addict is a really selfish one. You know, it's not like you're putting a lot of thought into, you know, bettering your community or helping out your friends or being a good son or daughter. You're only thinking of yourself. Let me rephrase that. I only thought of myself and my needs. And my need was usually to stay high, forsaking anything and everyone around me. So when a young girl came to me one time and asked me if I could help her buy some weed, and I was really dope sick and I needed some heroin, I convinced her to pay for it and try heroin. And she did. It took some convincing, but she did it. About 3 years later, she died of an overdose. I had a connection to a supply of methadone pills. Methadone classically is kind of thought of as like a liquid that junkies take to stop taking heroin, but it's also prescribed by doctors for pain. And I knew somebody who had a prescription for it, but they didn't like to take it, so they would give me a lot of their excess, and I would sell it. One of the people I used to sell it to died of an overdose. In 2008, I had come back to Madison, to Wisconsin, from Pinedale, Wyoming. I had decided to move to Kansas at one point after a girlfriend broke up with me, and I didn't know what to do with myself. I couldn't handle the pain of that. I mean, I couldn't handle the pain of anything. But so I moved to Kansas because I had a friend that lived there. And thought that I would try to start over again, but like in a real way, not like just traveling with my pack, but I was going to go and try to live, become stationary. Well, that didn't work because everywhere I went, I did the same thing. I would get drunk, I would get high, I would hang out with the same kind of people, and it was always the same conclusion. So that didn't work out in Kansas. I ended up in Pinedale, Wyoming by accident. Shacked up with this woman and her kids, and I don't know why she thought that was a good idea, but I didn't stay for very long. I came back to Madison and got a hold of an old friend of mine named Mike Cundard. Mike and I grew up together, met him the first day of 7th grade. I think he was in 6th, I was in 7th. And I remember him pulling up to the bus stop with his father, and he didn't want to go to school that day for whatever reason. He was arguing and being defiant and throwing pencils and balloons in his dad's face. And I don't know, his dad did like I don't know if y'all remember like The Simpsons from like the really, really early episodes when like Homer would grab Bart by the neck and choke him and shake him. Like he did literally that exact thing. And he's like, get out of the car! And he jumped out of the car and ran away. And I was like, wow, that was really entertaining. The next day, we were back at the bus stop, and I was able to talk to him. We kind of joked about that. Basically, the bottom line is that he had a really messed up upbringing also. So we had a lot in common right there. Let me just say briefly that if the things you have most in common with your cohorts is dysfunction and insanity, you might want to look for some different friends. So in 2008, I had just come back from Pinedale, Wyoming, and I bumped into Mike. He had been, throughout that time, like a little brother to me. You know, I didn't have a little brother, I was a little brother, and I hated it, because my brother is so much older. You know, it was really easy for him to mess with me and take my stuff and, you know, whatever, just be a jerk, essentially. So I like the idea of having a little brother, not so that I could do those things, but so that I could be like the big brother that I had always wanted. You know, I could teach him things and I could show him stuff. And I did. I taught Mike things, and I showed him some stuff. Like I taught him how to roll a joint. And I showed him how to inhale it so that he could get high. You know, I taught him how to like mix drinks. You know, I showed him how you can like do those things and get away with it. I taught him how to shoot dope. You know, I showed him how you can be a junkie and keep your habit going by selling to your friends. And then on October 17th, 2008, while I went to go walk my dog, Buddy, he did a shot after, well, we had shot him earlier that day, and then he went to go buy some more. And when he came back, he was very upset. He had talked to his ex-girlfriend who broke up with him while he was in jail. And she was with a new guy and apparently pregnant, and that really upset him because he, for whatever reason, was hoping to have a family with her at some point. Even though it was completely unrealistic and irrational, as addicts tend to be. That was his hope, that was his dream, that's what he wanted more than anything. That was never made into a reality because of his heroin addiction. So while I was out walking my dog, I said I'd be right back. I said, I'm just going to go to the corner and I'll be right back. And I got to the corner. Does anybody remember like October of 2008? It was really, really nice. It was like June, you know, June weather. So I walked there and decided I'm going to go a little bit further. This is right in downtown Madison, you know, like all the students are back, it's really lively, it's a Friday night. So I walk up the street and then I go up to State. I walk up State Street a couple of times. And then eventually I started to make my way back to the apartment where we were at. And I go in and I yelled for him and he didn't answer me. So I go upstairs and I see him sitting in front of the computer with his face resting on the keyboard and his hand hanging at his side. And just below that is a diabetic needle like you saw up on the screen. And I had seen enough people overdose in my 9.5 years of using heroin to know exactly what had happened. I didn't have to figure it out. I knew immediately. And I reacted to that by trying to get the hell out of there. I quickly grabbed my stuff, got my dog, and I was going to take off out the door, and then it occurred to me. I love this guy. He's my best friend. He's like my little brother. I can't abandon him. I can't. I can't go through the rest of my life knowing that I did that. So I went back upstairs and I called 911. He was still warm, although he had no pulse. His face was like a shade of gray, his lips were purple, and his eyes were sort of half open with some white stuff in his lips. Paramedics came and they were able to get his heart started. Unfortunately, in the time that he was sitting there without oxygen, he became brain dead. But over the next 3 days, his family was able to come to the hospital and they were able to see him and hold his hand and say goodbye. His mother was there, and I don't know how many times I told her I was sorry. And I don't think she quite understood what I meant by that. I think she thought I meant like, I'm sorry that I couldn't save him. And I was. Because of all the people that had ever overdosed in my presence, no one had ever died before. No one had ever gotten to that point. I was always able to shake them out of it or call 911 in time. But what I meant, what I said I was sorry was, I'm sorry that I helped him get there. I felt responsibility there. I felt a lot of responsibility. I still do. I've come to accept it. I'm able to sort of balance it out a little bit because I do this. Because I help people like you not get to that point. Because I help people who have been there get out of it. You know, I've been fortunate after having been an addict for so long, suffered my own consequences, legal and physical, not to mention emotional and psychological. I was given an opportunity to go to treatment after overdosing myself for many times. But this last time I was charged with possession of narcotics, and I went to jail, and they were kind enough to offer me a shot and gave me treatment. And from there I was allowed to go into a drug court program. And I was able to find this new way of life, something that had never even occurred to me before. And now I do a lot to help other people to find that as well, because people don't have to be locked into an addiction. You know, once you get stuck into the habit of drinking every weekend, you know, like, you don't have to do that for the rest of your life. You can do something different. You know, you can feel good enough about yourself. You can recognize enough of your self-worth to know that it's not necessary. You don't have to be 25 years old and living under a bridge in dirt. You know, you don't have to be 30 years old and standing there getting your mugshot taken for the 22nd time. And that's just at that jail. I've been arrested all over the country. There's hope for addicts, as is evident by the fact that myself and Byron are here in front of you today. But most people don't make it. Most people die. Maybe not right away, but they do die. Every junkie suffers a junkie death unless they stop what they're doing and do something absolutely different. It doesn't have to get to that point, though. People can do something different way ahead of time. You can just take that other road. You know, I didn't take another road because I necessarily wanted to. It was put in front of me, but when it was, I took advantage of it. And right now, you know, some of you could be sitting here thinking like, this doesn't apply to me. My life is nothing like that guy. I have no idea what he's even talking about. Why am I even sitting here? But I guarantee that every single person in this room, student and faculty alike, is touched by addiction one way or another. You might not realize it, because, you know, people have different classifications of what addiction is. Recently, I was engaged for about 2 years, and I was in that relationship for almost 4.5 years. We separated, and we broke up. We live in separate places. We still talk, we still communicate, we've seen each other a few times. We have different rules for our relationship now. But like, that didn't destroy me. It didn't take me down. You know, and it's only because I've been given this remarkable thing called choice. I can choose today to pick up a drug or not. I choose not to. Because I know that if I pick up a drug, any drug, even if I were to pick up another cigarette again, I know that that'll lead back to the bridge, to the jail, and to the grave. I cannot give in to my addiction. If I do, I'm dead. Just like David, and Nubi, and Mike, and countless others. But you don't have to do that. You have a choice today. You can decide to live your life, and if you make one positive decision today, it's to do the right thing for yourself and the people around you. And then tomorrow you can do the next right thing, and then the next right thing, and then the next right thing. It's really that simple. Thank you.